Hello, welcome to today's class. In today's class, you'll be introduced to data validation in Microsoft Excel and Google Spreadsheet. If you remember clearly, in our last class, you were introduced to data cleaning on how to undo duplicate and unwanted characters in datasets. And also, you were able to sort data and use filters for filtering in Microsoft Excel and Google Spreadsheet. In today's class, you'll be introduced to data validation. First, what is data validation? Data validation is a powerful feature in Excel and Google Spreadsheet that helps ensure the accuracy and consistency of data entered into a spreadsheet by setting rules and restrictions on what user can input into a cell, such as allowing only number, date, text, or values from a drop-down list. We can prevent common data entry errors and maintain the integrity of our dataset. Today, we will learn how to set data validation to make our spreadsheet smarter and more reliable. You will learn how to use data validation for accuracy and to help our users input the right data into our spreadsheet. Now, how can we use data validation tools that we just mentioned? To make use of data validation tool, you will navigate to where your data ribbon is and then click on data validation. Quickly, let me navigate to our Excel file so that we can use this. For this topic, we will be using the chemistry practical group performance dataset. This dataset is categorized into different ways. As you can see, we have group, matric number, gender, and exam scores. Where students are categorized into different groups. We have group A, group B, and group C. So the use of data validation in our case is to help our user click the right thing and to set the right value for each rows. Take for example, if we would like to insert another dataset below this dataset, how can we help our user to ensure that they input the right thing and not enter the wrong value? Take for example, for this group, we are only limited to group A and to group C. So we want to limit our user from entering a value from A to C. This is where data validation comes to play. We can quickly set a data validation rule where our group is only between A to C and the gender of our dataset is between male and female and nothing else. Now let's start and set this data validation rule. Navigate to data ribbon, locate the data tools and click on the data validation tab that we have here. Now from this, we can set anything here. As you can see, let me start with our exam score. We want to limit our exam score to be between 0 to 100 by using the data validation. So we navigate back to the data validation and we click it. As you can see, the default value there before was any value. Now that's not what you want to accept. You want to accept a whole number. And the number should be between 0 and 100. We click OK. By setting this, if our user were to enter anything above 100, Microsoft Excel is smart enough to reject that value. Let's test it. 1001. Enter. As you can see, Microsoft Excel rejects that input by telling us that this value does not match the data validation restriction defined for this cell. So we can click on cancel. Now let's go ahead and set data validation for both group and gender. We highlight the whole group. Let me adjust it to select these three cells. And then we go to data validation. This time around, we'll be using drop-down list. Then we highlight the drop-down list we want to use for our dataset, which is this group that I created here. So I will highlight the three values. And by default, you see that they are all absolute values. So we click OK. Then we say OK. The moment we click on OK, if you click any cell, you'll see that you have this drop-down icon beside them. And you'll be able to see different groups that our group entails. So let me go to another cell below them. You'll see that I have another icon here. So if I click on it, I can set it to anything I want. But it will always be between the A, B, C and nothing else. If I try and input any values aside from this group, we can get an error. So let me set D. Let me type D. You see, we have an error. Data validation has only limited the scope of our groups to be between A and C. Now let's go ahead and set data validation for gender as well. So let me highlight the entire data, then go to data validation, then perform the same operation as we did on group by clicking on this list. So we highlight the data validation that we would like to use. We say okay. And if you notice that this time around I selected the entire gender and not extending it below it, so you see what will happen right now. And before we go on, you see that we have an input message here. This input message enables us to show our user what they should do. Before they type anything, this input message will be displayed to our user. Anything you set here will be displayed to your user. Take for example, make sure you use the right gender. That's okay. That is telling me that it can only be within this range and nothing more. So let me click the input message. Be sure to enter the right gender. And also you will see that we have an error alert here. So if we go to this error alert, this is what displays if our user did not follow the rule that we set. Let me give this error. Check the input. The moment I click on this OK, this data validation will be active immediately. As you can see, the message that we give it to show to our user is now active. As you can see, make sure you enter the right gender. Be sure to enter the right gender, which is exactly what we put to our data validation. Now, for this case, we want to set a drop-down list here so that we'll be able to see the performance of different groups. Let's quickly do that the way we did this. So I go to the data validation, and I go to this validation criteria and then click on list. So I will highlight the list that I want our user to see by selecting these three groups, and then I click on OK. And immediately I click on OK, you see that this groups is now available here. So the moment I begin to change it from one group to the other, you see the performance of our group. The group that we selected, which is B, the performance of that group is 70.17. Performance of C is 72.8, while the performance of A is 66.5. Now on data manipulation with functions. Data manipulation with function in Excel and Google Spreadsheet allows us to transform, analyze, and extract meaningful insight from our raw data set. Two essential functions for data manipulation in Excel and Google Spreadsheet are logical functions and lookup functions. Logical functions like if, and or help make decisions within data by testing conditions and returning different outcomes depending on whether those conditions are true or false. For example, we can use formula to highlight students who score above a certain grade or identify overdue task. Now, let's see this logical function in practical. This time around, we want to determine the student that made the requirement of this chemistry practical. Those that made the requirement are those that got 60 and above in their practical exam. As you can see from the instruction given here, we are to determine those that meet it and those that did not meet it by using if condition as we introduced in our presentation. Now, this is asking for a logical test. This is the test that we will be determining. This will return either true or false for these functions to give us either the value we want to return when the condition did not meet. So this is if the score is greater than or equals to 60, then it should give us meet. Else we want to show not meet, and we close the parenthesis. You see that immediately we close the parenthesis, we have meet. Now let us fill this down by double clicking on this gear icon. We have meet, not meet. This is because this is below 60. This one is meet, while the other is also showing meet. Before we go ahead and do this score comment, it is advisable to quickly treat this logic and an or statement. These functions helps us to determine whether two conditions are true or false by combining them together. When we have true and true statement, then by using this and condition, we will have true. But whenever a false statement is in the data we are trying to compare, the value will give us false. Now we will be using this to check if the score is between 70 and 80. So we can do this by starting the equal sign and typing and statement, and and given the condition that we are trying to test. So if score is greater than or equals to 70, and another logic statement we are trying to compare is if it is less than or equals to 80, and then we say enter. So you see this is false. If I double click this and fill the rest, you see that we have true when our data is between 70 and 80. Now let's switch to or. The or statement enables us to determine if either of the condition that we give to our or function is true, then the result will be true. Otherwise, it will be false. Now let's put this into action. Start by typing the or function and then giving it indicate score below either 50 or 60. So we say if the score is below greater than 50, or it is below 60. Now let me double click it. You see the function in action. You see this is scores below 50 or 60. That is, this 57 is below 60, but it's not below 60. As you can see, one of the statements is true. That's why we have true here. Now the moment the both statements are false, that's why we have false for this one, because this is above 60 and it's also above 50. Now switching to the not statement. The not statement returns the opposite of its value. If you give a not statement true, it will give you false, and if it's false, it will return true. This is just like returning the inverse of a statement. Now let's find the opposite of this side and the opposite of this side as well by clicking not function. Now give it this value because we are trying to find scores that are not between 70 and 80, which is why we are using this, because this one is between 70 and 80. Now we click enter. Now let me double click this to fill the rest. You see that we have true, why this is false and false, because this one is true and true. Now let's do the second one. This is, we are finding the scores that are not below either 60 or 60, which is the opposite of this. Now we can put equal sign not, then we give it this input and click on it. So we can fill it down by clicking on this jar icon. We have true because this is false, we have false because this is true, and so on and so forth. Now since we understand the concept of this and, or, and not, let's go back to our score comment. So where we give the function fair if the score is below 60, average if the score is between 50 and 60, very good if the score is greater than 60. And as you can see, this average looks like what we use and function on, because this one is between 50 and 60. Now this time around, you will be introduced to the use of if statement. This enables us to give Microsoft Excel or Google Spreadsheet multiple conditions where we want to determine the final result based on multiple conditions. So the condition we have in this case are these three. We will be using the if statement to get that done. Now let's start. You start with equal sign ifs. Then as you can see, we can give as many logical statements as we like. Now we start with if the score is below 60. If the score is below 60, the value for that should be fair. Also, if the score is between 60 and 50, then the value should be average. You will see this time around we have to use another function called and statement, because we are trying to compare the result of one to the other, which is and statement. Now we give it score if the score is greater than or equals to 50, and also if the score is less than or equals to 60, less than or equals to 60. Now the result for that should give us average. While if the score is greater than 60, we want to return very good. If the score is greater than 60, we want to return very good. Yes. The moment we finish this, then we end it with a parenthesis. And you see, with that, we are able to use various conditions to get this done. Now we can fill it down by clicking on this jar icon. Then you will see the result that we have. As you see, whenever our score is below 50, we want to have what? We want to have, oh, you see, we made a mistake. We mistakenly put 60 here while 50 was expected. Now let's change it to 50. And then we can fill it down. Let me quickly drag it up so that you fill the one above, and also fill it down so that you fill the one below it. Now we have the right answer. You see, whenever our score is 48, we have fair, because any value that is below 50 is fair, and any value between 60 and 50 is average, as you can see. I believe with these two examples, you are able to use the if and else statement effectively in Microsoft Excel and Google Spreadsheet, because all these things that we just achieved here is exactly the same process that we will follow if we would like to do that in Google Spreadsheet. Now let's switch to lookup functions. Lookup functions allows us to search for specific information across a table or range. This is especially useful when working with large data sets where you need to match or retrieve related information quickly, like finding a product price based on its color or pulling a student name from an ID number. So with the use of this lookup function, such as VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, SLOOKUP, and index and match, you can get this done. As you can see, VLOOKUP searches for a value in a column, while HLOOKUP searches for a value in a row. For more flexibility, we use XLOOKUP, because XLOOKUP can deal with both column and row at the same time while performing the function of these two functions. Also, index and match is a powerful alternative to VLOOKUP function, because you can get VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP done by also using this index and match with complexity. But with this XLOOKUP, you can get them done in more flexible way. So let's go to our practical lab and get it done. For this data sample, we want to determine the gender, score, and if the student meets the requirement by using our lookup functions. Now let's start with our VLOOKUP. The order of VLOOKUP is as follows. We have the lookup value, the table array, the column index, and the range lookup, so which is optional. Any value or argument you see in a function that has this square bracket around them is a functional argument. Let's start with the lookup value that we are looking for. We are looking for this particular student from this entire table. So make sure that you select the entire student, starting from where the student matric number is appearing. You select it, then let me quickly lock it so that it won't be moving across to the other cells when we try and drag it down. Now what we want to find now is the column index of where we want to return. The column index for what we are trying to return in this particular table, if you count it, this is the first one, second one, and the third one. The column index of what we are returning here is the second one, which is the gender, because we are looking for gender in our case here. So if I give it 2, and you see, immediately I give it 2, that is what it will be referring to whenever we want to extract it. Now the last one, which is range lookup. This is asking us, are we trying to return using an approximate match or exact match? The approximate match, we try to aggregate some values to be able to give us nearest result, while the exact match will give us the accurate value that we are looking for. If it is not there, it will give us none. So let me click this exact match, and then we click on enter. Immediately I click on enter, we see that this particular student is a female, and then I can drag this down so as to find the other student as well. As you can see, these 3 students, they are all female, while the last one is only male that is appearing there. As you can see from the data set, 85, student with 85 ID is female, while the student with 330 ID is also female. Student with 70 ID is a female, and also the 27 ID is a male. Now that we know how to use VLOOKUP, let's see how we can use index and match to achieve the same thing. The order of index and match is as follows. Index is asking for an array, which is the entire table, while the row is where the value we are trying to extract from appear, and also the column, which is the particular column we are trying to extract from. Now let's input. The array that we are trying to extract from is this entire array. We are starting from this matrix number because the matrix number is our basis. Then let me lock it by clicking on F4 on my keyboard. So the row number will be determined by using our match function, because we want to determine the particular row where our student ID is appearing in this matrix number. So we can get that done quickly by using the match function. So, and you see the match function is looking for a lookup value and lookup array and the match type that we are trying to get done. So the lookup value that we are looking for is this particular student ID, and also the lookup array is for this matrix number. So I can select the entire matrix number by just holding Ctrl Shift down arrow on my keyboard to select the entirety of the matrix number. So let me lock it by clicking on F4 on my keyboard. Now the match type that I want to get done is this exact match. So I will close this thing, and the moment I close the match, you'll see that we are now left with this colon number. This colon number will be used to extract the score out of the array that we supplied, and the colon number that we are trying to extract in this case is the score number. And from the array that we supplied, we have this, and this. The position of this score in the array is the third column, so we put 3 so as to tell you that the third column is what we are trying to extract. So I click OK, and the moment I click on OK, you see that we have 84. So if I let me drag it down so that you see the rest. So we have 84, 74, 62, and 52. If you check this table, you see that that is exactly what we are expecting. Now let's switch to my favorite, XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP is a versatile function which can be used to extract from both the row and the column. This can perform the function of both VLOOKUP and index and match with no stress. So let's get this started. The order of XLOOKUP start as those. Is asking for lookup value, lookup array, return array, and if the value is not found, what should happen? The match mode, the search mode. So let's do this. The lookup value that we are trying to look for in this case is this 3 student matrix number. Let me select the 3 because VLOOKUP is expecting array. You can either use array or just select a single cell for this XLOOKUP, but it will still work the same way. Now this is asking for the lookup array. The lookup array that we are trying to search for this lookup array. Now let's supply the lookup array. The lookup array is this particular student matrix number. So I will select the entire matrix number so as to tell our XLOOKUP that this is the lookup array. And immediately I do that, you see that I lock it immediately by holding F4 on my keyboard. So now that is the lookup array. So I put comma, and now the return array that we are trying to get. The return array is our mint requirement value, and you will see we don't have the mint requirement yet because that particular value has already been gotten in our previous sheet. So let me quickly switch there and get that done. Let me escape it and let me get that. XLOOKUP is my favorite, by the way. So, and it's one of the latest functions that was released by Microsoft Excel and Google Spreadsheets. As you can see, XLOOKUP searches a range or an array for a match and return the corresponding item for a second range or array. By default, an exact match is used, which is telling us that we don't need to be certain either it should be exact match or not. Now let us look the order of XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP is expecting lookup value, lookup array, return array. If not found, match mode, and search. So let's quickly supply this and see how it works. So XLOOKUP is asking for lookup value. So let me quickly select these 3 data sets since XLOOKUP can accept a range, and these 4 cells are the range that we have here. Now the second thing that we are looking for is lookup array, which is the array that we are trying to match this lookup value to. So lookup array are this matrix number. Let me select the entire matrix number and then press F4 to lock it. The last but not the least are the return array, which is what we are trying to return to the user. And as you can see, the meet requirement is what we are looking for. So I can select this entire cell by holding down my Ctrl Shift down arrow. So and then I lock it. If I press enter, you see that we have the requirement, if the student met the requirement or not. As you can see, we have meet, and not meet for this one. So which is showing the versatility of XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP can get a lot of things done for you without stress. As you can see, we use range, and get everything done easily without navigating from one table array to the other, the way it happened for this VLOOKUP. Now tell me, where do you think this XLOOKUP will be useful for you? Now that you've added this to your toolbox, and now it's one of your arsenal that you can use to get a lot of things done like a superhero. Moving on, in our previous class, if you remember that we were introduced to text functions, where you were able to use the left, right, mid functions. But I haven't introduced this length function to you. This length function can be used to get the length of a string, the total length of a string. It can be used to get that. While this right function are just to extract values from a text, same as this left function and mid. If you remember in the class where we were introduced to left, mid, and the right function, we use these functions to extract the product ID, the product category, city, and product size from the dataset. Where we use this length, as you can see, left A3, that is, we want to extract this particular value from the product key. And you know that our product key contains of product ID, product category, city, and the product size. Now, how we were able to get that done was using left to get the product ID, where we find the first occurrence of this particular dash, and then we use that to get the value out from our data set by using this function. Now for the product category, we use the main function to get that done by finding the occurrence of the first dash and then adding 1 to it so as to extract these particular values. For the city, you see that we still use this particular main function again, where we use the find function twice, where we determine the location of this first dash and then we add 3 to it so as to extract this city from it, and we were able to get that done. For the product size, which was the last value in the product key, we use the right function, where we extract it out by using the right function. Now let me return our table back to the values. As you can see, with the function we have all these values. Now let me introduce you to how to use the length function to determine the length of entire text. Take for example the product key that we have here. We want to determine the total length of this product key. The length can be determined by using the length function. Can you see the length function? As you can see, the length function returns the number of characters in a text string. So you can try and attempt to do this at your end as well. The length function. Now the length function is asking us for the text. So the moment I supply the text to it and then close the parentheses, you see that we have the entire length of the data set. This is telling us that the 16 is the length of this entire product key. So let me quickly fill it down and see the rest. You see that almost everything is 16. The length of all the data set is 16. Take for example, let me try and change this. Let me remove the 27 and you see the length is now showing us 14. Let me change this one as well, removing the 3 and 7. The length is now 13. So with this particular function, we can determine the length of a text. Combining and formatting text in spreadsheet is useful when you want to join information from different cells or add custom labels to your data. This is often called concatenation in programming. We can combine text by using the concatenate function This helps in joining two or more cells together. While another one that we can use to join cells together is the TEXTJOIN, one of the latest functions released by Microsoft and Google Spreadsheet. The use of this TEXTJOIN is advanced way of getting text join without stress. Also, if you want to format number, date, or values as part of the text using the text function, for example, turning date into a nicely formatted label. Firstly, we have three methods of concatenating text together. The old ways of concatenating text together is this first and this second. This is function, while this is a operator. This ampersand operator can be used to concatenate different text together by separating them with this ampersand operator. While this concatenate function can be used to also do the same thing that you accomplish using the ampersand operator. This text join is advanced way of getting those things done. Now let's see that in example. Take for example, we want to concatenate this first name and surname together. Now the first method of doing that is by using this ampersand. As you can see, we have K5 ampersand, then separate it with space, then we still put ampersand again while we navigate to where the surname is. With that, you'll be able to get the surname. The second method of getting that done is by using this concatenate K5 space L5. With that, we're able to concatenate those two, and you will see that these two examples almost follow the same process, but this is using ampersand while this is using the concatenate function. The advanced way of getting those two done is by using TEXTJOIN. This enables you to enter the delimiter, while it also enables you to type whether you want to ignore empty cells or not, while you can now begin to list the text you are trying to join. As you can see, with this three method, we are able to concatenate the two values together. The first method enables us to use TEXTJOIN, while the second method enables us to use concatenate. The first method is using ampersand. Now let's go to the general example where we put this to use. Now this time around, we'll be using the TEXTJOIN function because we have access to this TEXTJOIN. Using the other two methods, in this case, we just be redundant because we have empty cell here. But if you try to concatenate them using this ampersand, we will be having two extra spaces, which we are trying to avoid. So we will be using this TEXTJOIN because this enables us to ignore empty cell. Now let's start. Equal sign TEXTJOIN. So I click on tab. So this is asking for the delimiter that I'm trying to use to separate this first name, middle name, and last name. So the delimiter should be space. Then I separate it with comma. This is asking that should we ignore the empty cell in between, which is true. I want to ignore it, so I say true. And now I can now start to identify my text. The first one is here, while the second one is here, and the third one is here. So I can now close the parenthesis. So I click on enter, and immediately you see we don't have any extra spaces in between. Assuming we use these two methods, we will have extra spaces. But with the use of TEXTJOIN, we don't have any extra spaces. And if I fill it down, you see that everything is in coherent order. I believe with these two examples, you are able to use concatenate function to get TEXTJOIN together by using ampersand, concatenate, and the TEXTJOIN, which is the advanced way of joining text together. Changing text case is paramount for a clean data set. Whether you want to make all your text to be in uppercase, lowercase, capitalized case, will make sure that your data is well structured and organized. Now let's see that in action. Take for example, we want to change the case of these names to be consistent across the entire range. First, let's use proper function to get this capitalized, and be aware, proper we only capitalize the first letter of a word. Now let's start. So proper is asking for the text, so I will give it the text, which is this. Then I close it, and immediately I close it, you see that I have Elizabeth. If I drag it downward, you see that everything is now ordered by capitalizing the first letter in each name. Now uppercase. The use of uppercase will capitalize the entire names. It will capitalize all the names that we have here. As you can see, we have Elizabeth, everything in all caps, which is still in order. Now for lower, With that, I have a lowercase name. In this class, you have been introduced to data cleaning to ensure accuracy, consistency, and reliability of the data set. And also, you were introduced to how Excel provides multiple tools to detect and correct data issues. You were also introduced to how to use logical, lookup, and test function to manipulate and extract data efficiently. Before we go to the next module, you will investigate. Before we go to the next module, this dataset will be shared with you, where you try to simulate something similar to this result. As you can see, the moment I switch from one product category, I get all this result, and everything were automated. So this is the power of Microsoft Excel and Google Spreadsheet. All these things are something you can get done easily in Google Spreadsheet and Microsoft Excel. In our next class, you'll be introduced to tables, how to use tables, and how efficient tables can solve all the problems and issues that ranges offers.